Hello and welcome to match day 18 of Championship predictions from the Honest Sport Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me as always is Mr. Daniel Cody. We are back from the international break, the last international break of the year, and we don't have to worry about that until March. Let's have a quick recap of what happened before the international break. And there were 3 perfect scores overall, 2 for Mr. Daniel Cody on Blackburn versus Sheffield United and Blackpool versus QPR. My only 3-pointer was West Brom versus Middlesbrough, but Daniel Cody wins again with 10 points compared to my 6. Let's start off with the Friday night football on match day 18. It's QPR. What a shock. They're on TV again. This time, they're at home to Luton Town. You went to the last Luton game against Stoke. It wasn't pretty. They didn't play particularly well, but it was pretty much a stubborn Stoke performance. We'll get on to Stoke later, but let's talk about Luton. It wasn't really great.
No, it wasn't. For me, it was the sort of game that showed why we won't make the playoffs this year, unfortunately, which is just there's a few too many occasions where we're either overpowered by sides or we're caught on the counter like the Birmingham game earlier in the year. The only thing, I know we'll get on Stoke later, is that I'm surprised they didn't go for it a 1-0. They sat back, started time wasting, I guess because of what had happened in a few of the previous games. But otherwise, I think they could have beaten us comfortably. QPR have been, I know you can say they're 4 games unbeaten now in all competitions if you take out penalties in the cup, but they've not been convincing. And actually, since Sky have started picking them for TV every game, they've started to get really boring as well. Every game finishing 1-1 or 1-0. So I don't actually think this is going to be the thriller that a lot of people think. I know under the lights, both QPR and Luton are normally entertaining teams, but I think the Friday night TV after the international break is going to catch up with both. And I'm going to start, I'm very sorry to say it, with...
For a 0-0.
No, I'm going to sit on the fence with the Championship's favourite scoreline.
Tough game. Luton haven't won at QPR for a long, long time. Luton have only won on Sky once in a long time as well.
What's the last time, though?
Was the last time? No, yeah, was the last time. That's the last. It's been a while since when they go back on Sky again. So Friday night for Luton, which is very rare. QPR wasn't particularly great against Blackpool. Fortunate to get a point. It was a good, to be fair, it was a good strike by Willock, but we'll get on to Blackpool's disallowed goal later. But I'm gonna. You went 1-1, you mug. Right, I'm gonna go 2-1 Luton. Gonna stick with my team. Be good. I think it'll be a good game. Right, next up, Saturday, early kickoff. It is Sheffield United versus Coventry. Sheffield United lost 3-1 at Blackburn. Started very, very well. Nice to see Brewster turn up for once. Coventry, great comeback. Despite down to 10 men, another home victory for them.
Yeah, I've got to say, we've talked about Coventry away from home a lot this season and had some criticism for it. But at home, you wondered how they were going to bounce back from a couple of slightly poorer performances, perhaps. But you can't argue with that. With 10 men to come back, well, not once, but twice. It was an incredible effort. Obviously, they won it at the death and started some rumours about Nigel Pearson, which were later unfounded. But you've got to praise the Coventry spirit. Great bounce back from the Swansea home disappointment. Sheffield United were coming up against a Blackburn side that had been absolutely tanked by Fulham and just, again, gave away silly goals. And it looked so good early on. Ryan Brewster getting a goal. They played quite well for the opening little spell, and then they just collapsed after half-time. It was a really poor display. But still, somehow in 18th, they're only 7 points off the playoffs. It's by no means over for them. And Coventry away from home, we've said it all season. They've only won 2 of their 8 games. Sheffield United have won 3 at home. I'm tempted to sit on the fence again, but I'm not gonna. I'm going to say that Sheffield United are going to start their run now. Sheffield United are going to win 2-1. I've got no logic behind it other than Coventry haven't been great on the road, and I think Sheffield United will hit fire now.
Sheffield United have really stuttered for me lately, and it's weird because they haven't been boring games, if you know what I'm saying. Like there've been goals in these games, and the SCR scoring, but they are conceding really, really poor goals, like you said, and pretty much what like a Blackburn were last season, so inconsistent, and I think that's where Sheffield United are at the moment. Coventry, on the other hand, got to give them praise as well. Obviously, terrible game against Swansea. Comeback, it wasn't great, but they came back, especially coming from 10 men as well. So you have to give them credit on that. Home base for them has been absolutely crucial for them this season, and I think it's really nice to see. However, they're away. I'm going to go sit on the fence. I'm going to go Championship favourite scoreline of 1-1. Right, next up at Ashton Gate is Bristol City versus Blackburn Rovers. Bristol City did play Coventry 2-1 up, lost it in the 92nd minute. Blackburn, I say what, bounce back ability is the key thing. That come from 7-0 to a good 3-1 win at home.
Yeah, the problem is though, Craig, isn't it? We've said it for how long that Blackburn are the most patchy team in the Championship. I know they won 2 games in a row before Fulham, but they weren't convincing. And you have to question whether they're going to do that again. I genuinely have no idea with this game. Bristol City, for the first time in a year, are coming off the back of a home win into another home game. But Nigel Pearson, unfortunately, seems to have been quite unwell with COVID. He is recovering at home still after his isolation. Don't know yet whether he's going to be there at the weekend because we're recording this quite far in advance. But back-to-back defeats on the road, conceded 3 each time. And you have to wonder if his presence not being there is going to make a difference. I think it's going to be entertaining because both sides' defensive records recently would suggest that. Shall I just go nuts, Craig? Because what's the point in not? 3-2 Blackburn.
Yeah, okay, that's a bit silly from my point of view. No, Blackburn going to win this game for me. Bristol City, 4 defeats in 5 now. I think Nigel Pearson, I know he wasn't there in the last game, but it's his team at the end of the day, and the Championship is a very cruel league, and he has to take some of the blame himself. Instead of deflecting on, I've got this player up, whatever, I think he's got to take some of the blame himself. So a little bit of criticism there for Bristol City. I'm going to go 2-0 to Blackburn. Next up at Craven Cottage, it is Fulham versus Barnsley. It is second versus 23rd now for Barnsley. Still no manager at the time of recording. We are recording, as you said, very, very early. But Fulham, one little bit of quality, won the game.
Yeah, and it was a very different performance from Fulham. And maybe we should give them credit. They weren't great against Peterborough. They had a lot of ball. We would have expected that. But Peterborough had as many chances. I know they're a little bit vulnerable at the back, and Fulham were able to take advantage eventually. But after 4 games in a row where they'd basically tanked teams, it was good to see them get a champions performance, I guess, a proper 1-0 classic away win. And they're the sort of games where earlier in the season, if we go back to Blackpool away and the likes, that is where they've slipped up. So credit to Fulham for that. Barnsley, we're expecting will have a new manager or head coach in charge by the weekend. At the moment, as we're recording this on Tuesday, it looks odds-on favourite is the Sweden under-21 manager, which would be an interesting appointment. But it's a similar approach for Barnsley, and they've got to bounce back. The whole defeat was crushing against a side that don't score goals. To concede goals in the manner you did is not positive. There's only one. This is the banker of the weekend, surely. Even with a new manager bounce, Fulham are going to win this one. Barnsley can't score goals. It's what score. I'm going to be reserved and say 3 because Mitrovic, after a big week for Serbia, will probably get rested at the hour mark if they're winning comfortably. So 3-0 Fulham, Craig.
Obviously, Mitrovic actually was a sub in that Portugal game for Serbia, and he came on and scored the winner. And you don't give Mitrovic that amount of space in the penalty area, but credit to him and Serbia. Yeah, obviously, Mitrovic scored again for Fulham before that against Peterborough. Barnsley, oh God, that was awful. That really was bad against Hull. They needed to get someone in ASAP for me. Obviously, you can pretty much write this game off because, obviously, Fulham at home are very, very good. You went 3-0. I'm going to go 2-0. I don't expect much, but yeah, I think Fulham will comfortably win this game. But 2-0. Right, next up, it's Huddersfield. They're at home to West Bromwich Albion. Huddersfield, disappointing really against Cardiff. West Brom, poor themselves, but 1-1 draw at home.
Yeah, and obviously the story of that game wasn't West Brom in the end, which we did a manager special on, but we'll talk a bit about that when we get to Borough. It's been a similar story for West Brom this season, hasn't it? We've had the odd game like maybe Bristol City where they played quite well, but generally it's been reliant on odd moments of quality. And I don't think they've really hit form at any stage yet. They're certainly not playing their best stuff. And they are stuttering and gradually getting further away from Bournemouth or Fulham. And I think even at this stage, probably will happen in the Championship, but they're reliant on one of those two to have a bad run now. Huddersfield, like you say, poor against what at the time were managerless Cardiff, but against who is now their manager. So not really a big deal in the end, but just signs that the Huddersfield start is starting to wane a bit. Disappointing draw at Peterborough, defeat against Cardiff. It's the first time this season where they've not really performed against sides expected to finish near the bottom. And I do worry after the purple patch at the start that they might decline a little now. So based on what we've seen this season, I'm going to go for a classic 1-0 away West Brom win. I think, again, they'll be efficient and maybe just nick one from a set piece or a Carlin Grant special like normal.
Carlin Grant special against his old club. I don't see it away. I think West Brom might struggle again. Huddersfield, okay. They'll be obviously annoyed that they push on from that 1-0 lead. against Cardiff. But John Smith's is very hard place to go. I'm going to go 1-1. Right, next up is Hull City versus Birmingham City. Hey, great win for Hull. I know it's against Barnsley, but you got to beat the teams that are around you. A quick relegation 6-point. Birmingham, very, very poor against Reading.
Yeah, and it's, again, Birmingham had just hit a little bit of form. And then when you expect, this is a home game, they'll get a victory in, it all starts to go wrong again. So very hard to predict. Risk becoming like a Blackburn this season where they're just impossible. They're going 2s and 3s. Hull City, like you say, it was a game they had to win. It kept them in touching distance. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about takeovers, potential manager changes, what might happen in January. But for now, they've got to stay in the mix. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for them. They've got to bear in mind Reading are getting a points deduction too, so that keeps them right in the mix. I don't know. Hull have been so poor at home this year. They've got the worst record at home in the league. They've only scored 5 goals in 8 matches. Birmingham away from home, they are still a top 6 side on the road. They've picked up 11 points. They don't let in many goals. And their last away game was a brilliant win at Middlesbrough. So I've got to go for Birmingham on the form book, but I can see this being one of those little shocking games. I'm going to go 2-1 to Birmingham. So I still think Hull will nick a goal.
I don't think Hull will nick a goal. Birmingham, obviously, poor defeat, come back with 3 straight wins from that. They'd be really disappointed with that. I think it'd be a typical Birmingham performance. I'm going to go 1-0 to Birmingham. Right, next up, it's Chrissy Wilder's Middlesbrough. They're at home to Millwall. We spoke about Chris Wilder's appointment a couple of weeks ago. Check that video on the eye above. But it will be a tough game against a stern and stubborn Millwall side.
Yeah, they're very often a compact side. Every game they win or lose is normally by 1 goal. Middlesbrough, it's about keeping themselves in the hunt at the moment while players are out and returning from injury until they get to January where Wilder can add his own players in. And to be fair, the result they had against West Brom, Neil Warnock's left them in the best possible position. And it's obviously great to have seen him get the record first. But I think Middlesbrough will get a bounce in this game. I think we'll see a big attendance. I think we'll see a Millwall side that will be stubborn. But again, they only score a goal a game. They've not got a massive attacking threat. I think we'll get an initial rush from Middlesbrough. There may be some disappointment later in the week. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Borough because they do concede the odd goal, even at home.
I think a point would be a very good result for Middlesbrough. It felt like the last game against West Brom, obviously that the players probably knew that Warnock was gone before the game. So I presume they played for him, really. And I think that was a pretty good performance for them. I think 1-1 would be the right result. I think it's something to build on. So Championship favourite scoreline for me. Right, next up, it is Preston North End. They're at home to Cardiff. Cardiff have appointed Steve Morrison as head coach until the end of the season. Surprised by that?
I'm surprised a little bit. I think it's a bit of a risk, to be honest, because they're only 3 points above the relegation zone. Yes, they won against Huddersfield, but you wouldn't say since he's become caretaker. They've shown a lot of fight. They've been gritty. They've come back in games like the Stoke one, obviously, but they haven't shown real quality or look like they're going to win games comfortably. So for Cardiff, I think it's a big risk. And of course, we saw a similar situation last season with Sheffield Wednesday after Tony Pulis. I know that was their second manager of the season, but they thought they'd cling on with the interim approach, and in the end, they had to change it. So I hope for Cardiff's sake they don't. I hope for Steve Morrison's sake they don't. But his big problem is to address the defensive record. It's the second worst in the league. They're one of only 2 sides with Peterborough to let in over 30 goals. And away from home, while they've actually been a little bit better this year, they still haven't looked hugely convincing. So away at Preston, who are just a complete mixed bag. Awful defeat at Blackpool, 2 good wins against Luton and Bournemouth in particular, and then beaten comfortably by Forest and defended really poorly. So because Preston are at home, I'm going to go for them to win. I think it's going to be a really poor game because I think Steve Morrison's got to have done work on the international break on getting that defence sorted out. So 1-0 Preston. Yeah,
Morrison surprised me, to be honest. Obviously, where they are, as you say, where they are in the league, they might have someone ready in line for next season. I don't know. Depends on where they finish in the season. Preston back to normal. A shocking away performance. They were poor, very, very poor against Nottingham Forest. Cardiff are struggling for goals. Which Preston turn up, I don't know. I'm going to go 0-0 in this game. I don't like predicting 0-0s, but I think 0-0 very negative on these 2 teams at the moment. Sorry. Right, next up is 2 teams who won. I'm going to be a bit more positive on these 2. Reading versus Nottingham Forest. Reading come back against Birmingham away from home. There's a little bit of a delay in the kickoff. And Forest very comfortable against Preston.
Yeah, and obviously Reading have got a new target man to filter into this game as well, because Andy Carroll's joined for the next couple of months. They come off a good result. And to be fair, Reading are very limited in what they can do at the moment with the transfer embargo in the summer. We've only been able to get frees and a couple of loans in. And I think they've done pretty well considering. Obviously, if they get the 9-point deduction, which now Derby's has come through, looks almost certain to happen, it will put them just 1 point above Hull. So they've got to nick some results. They're another team that have been really poor at the back this season. But I think with the quality and experience they've got in the team, they might be able to get a result. They're coming up against the Nottingham Forest side, who were really good against Preston, but again, haven't been brilliant in recent weeks, but have still been picking up points. And remarkably, given the start to the season under Chris Hughton, they're right in the playoff mix now, only 4 points away. So Reading at home, slightly better this year. They've won half of their games. Forest on the road, one of the best teams in the league. 2-2. I think it's going to be a really good game, actually.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think Forest will carry on with their good form at the moment. Obviously, now the strikers are scoring goals, which baffled us for the last season and a half. Reading, credit where credit's due. Very good away win at Birmingham. Big Andy Carroll, I don't think he'll start the game. Obviously, he's not going to be match fit at all. So it might be a good impact sub to start with in this first game. I think Forest are going to win this game 2-1. Up next, it's Stoke City. They're at home to Peterborough United. Stoke with a 1-0 classic Michael O'Neill away win at Luton. Peterborough, despite defeat to Fulham, but it was a very good home performance.
Yeah, and to be fair, we've said this, Peterborough are going to compete at home all season. However, on the road against one of the best teams at home in the league, this is number 2 of the bankers in the bankers list from the Championship this weekend, I think. Stoke, I've said earlier on, I mentioned it, I touched on it. It really frustrated me, even as a Luton fan, that at 1-0 they stopped, because Luton were there for the taking that day and they could have won that game by 2, 3 or 4. But as soon as they went 1-0 up, they started time wasting and ridiculous in the dark arts. I mean, the keeper going down for 4 or 5 minutes injured and then sprinting to get the ball. You know, all of the classics were in. But they've done it twice in a row successfully after what I think was probably a quite scarring day at home to Cardiff. And there's no surprise to me that they've bounced back with 2 1-0 wins. At home, Stoke are almost unbeatable, only 1 defeat to Bournemouth. And Peterborough are useless away from home. I know they won at Hull, but they've let in 22 goals on the road. And I can only see a couple more going in today. Surely Stoke don't stop at 1-0 at home to Peterborough. So I'm going to go for 2-0 to Stoke City.
I'm going to go 3-1 to Stoke. I think they express themselves more at home than they are away. And I can understand that. Peterborough, yeah, it was that little bit of quality from Fulham and the Mitrovic. Yeah, I think if they can build on that, hopefully they can start picking up wins, and they need to start picking up away wins as well. They really need to start doing that. I know they did it against Hull, but they really need to start. Obviously, this is going to be a very tough game. I don't see it happening for this one, but we'll see for the next one. 3-1 to Stoke. Right, next up, it's Swansea versus Blackpool. Swansea got absolutely battered by Bournemouth. Blackpool very cruelly denied an extra 2 points.
I mean, the refereeing decisions in that game, and you know me, I very rarely criticise referees. I was baffled when I saw that game. Genuinely, it wasn't just the goal. It wasn't just the potential penalty decisions and whatever else. It was the whole game. But obviously, it was just an unfortunate day at the office. Blackpool were brilliant. And given the Stoke performance, they bounced back really well. They're still in decent form overall. And they'll very happily take being 13 points clear of the relegation zone at this stage of the season. Swansea were a little bit unfortunate. They'd had 2 great results, comfortable at home to Peterborough and then a great win at Coventry, but they met a Bournemouth side that had to bounce back, and Bournemouth were unbelievable. So I'm not going to judge them much on that. I think this will be a really close game. Obviously, Swansea were a little bit distracted early in the international break because Russell Martin was bizarrely linked with the Rangers job when it early came available. Obviously, that's not going to happen now, but I think this is going to be a Championship's favourite scoreline. It's going to be a close game and a little bit of a clash of styles, which I think will be interesting to watch.
I think this is going to be the game of the weekend. I really do. I've been very impressed with Blackpool lately. Very cruelly denied the goal. And I know the lines, but I really don't know the lines, but I've seen the lines in previous games. I think it's been excellent. That was just a really, really bad call. Swansea, yeah, I think they kind of gifted Bournemouth a couple of goals as well. They weren't particularly great. on the day. Obviously, Bournemouth were excellent. But I think this will be a good game. I'm going to go 2-2. And the final game's on Sunday at midday. It is Derby County. They're at home to Bournemouth. Derby announced today at the time of recording. This is on a Tuesday. They have been deducted 9 more points. So they are currently still bottom of the table of the Championship, but now on -3, 18 points off safety.
It's I think it's game over now, isn't it? Let's be brutally honest. And what I'm interested to see, obviously Derby haven't won in 6 anyway. I know they've drawn a lot of games and they were spirited against Millwall, but look, they're not going to stay up. They're probably going to have to let some of the more prized assets, the international footballers, the few that are in their peak, go in January. And I wonder if we're going to see a change of tack from Derby now, because if they can get some of their star youngsters into the team and playing for 6 months, either they get more money for them in the summer or they've got a more experienced team in League One next year, which Derby have to prepare for now. So I'm not sure how to predict them for this game. Of course, the initial one, it's almost like the new manager bounce effect. On TV, are they going to get a big crowd in rallying behind the players? Or is it going to go the other way? Those who were involved and really invested in the spirited fight back in the relegation fight, are they now going to say, all right, we're down, we'll give up for the year? Because it's not cheap to go and watch Championship football. So Bournemouth at home, is one of the worst games you could get at this point. A side that haven't lost an away game all season, have let in 1 goal in 8 games on the roads. You couldn't ask for a harder game. Derby struggled to score. I don't think they're going to get one here. I might go big. I'm going to go 5-0 to Bournemouth. I'm really sorry.
We spoke in the past about Derby's points deductions, and it's deserved in a way as owners, not as the players, because the players are giving it. To be fair, the only negative for Derby as a playing side of it is they need to start picking up. Obviously, they pick up wins. They've drawn far too many, even before the first set of points deductions. They're not picking up the wins that they really need, and they need to find a way to start picking up wins. Maybe go a bit like Stoke, and if they can try and get another goal, and then might time waste. But obviously, 18 points behind, especially in the Championship, is very, very, very hard to come back in. And we know that we're Luton fans. We had -30 to start the season, and I hope they have the attitude of that they've got nothing to lose. Just give it all. There's no pressure. There actually is no pressure. I think there might have been when it was 12 points deducted, but now with the extra, obviously with the extra 9, they've got nothing to lose, and I think they should just play and try and win the game. Don't have to worry about this team. Just play and win. Try and win. But this is Bournemouth, so it's not the best start to have. Bournemouth are excellent at the moment. I'm going to go 2-0 to Bournemouth. Let's have a quick recap what we predicted for match day 18. I've gone through a few Championship scorelines there. I think it's 3 in total here. Daniel Coe's gone for a bold and courageous 5-0 win.
Courageous.
5-0 win against Derby. And those are predictions for match day 18. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down below. Give us your predictions for this weekend's action. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to your Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter @HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.